LinkedIn, but there wasn't a role that she could move into. And how amazing is it that she was able to spend several years at LinkedIn, grow her skill set, and now she's off running, another big tech company's learning and development organization, and we're still connected, and we will remain connected, and our lives will probably cross paths. But for a lot of companies, that notion that you would actually be able to have those open, honest conversations about somebody's next career move, even if it isn't in your company, is still a little awkward and strange. But I think it's becoming more the norm as we realize people are not going to stay typically at one company for their whole career. And so why not be real about that and help people succeed while they're there, but then stay connected to them even after they leave.
Well, LinkedIn, a very forward-thinking company in many, many respects, including that one. Now, you're a self-described work futurist. My question is, are you an optimistic work futurist, or are you the other kind?
I love that, or the other kind. So I actually am an optimistic work futurist, and the reason is, I mean, if we just think about the future of work and this shift, this dramatic shift that we're going through right now, people may say that's a doom and gloom scenario. So that's the other kind, right? The people who are saying, oh, all these jobs are going to go away. We're not going to have work anymore. Mm-hmm. But I'm actually quite an optimist. And I do believe that as automation and digitization continue to impact the way we work and think about work, that new jobs will be created and different types of jobs will be created. But not only that, I think people have this misconception that when we talk about the future of work and jobs, and that when we say jobs are going away, the reality is that percentages of jobs are going away. Sometimes it's not whole jobs. Maybe it's 30% of your job is getting taken over by automation or different things. That means there's 30% to reinvent what that job is. And sometimes it is about completely new jobs, but I feel like this is our opportunity to realize, and I mentioned it earlier, like what are some of the amazing skills that we need humans to have in order to be more successful moving forward. And those are what some people have called them soft skills. I call them power skills, but those uniquely human skills that are really going to help people add value and create more value for employers in the future. And I would say also that, for years and years, we've been trying to squeeze every bit of efficiency out of people as human assets. And I think that the future of work is more about creating value and realizing that machines can take over a lot of those routine tasks, leaving us to be more creative and to solve problems and to do work that's actually more meaningful, so people feel like they're having more impact in what they're actually doing. So I'd say that's a pretty optimistic work futurist view.
Well, I think optimism is a force multiplier, they say. So, and I think we've had lots of there's been lots of paradigm shifts in the past around work that we've managed to get through, whether it's the shift from agriculture or people talk about banking and ATMs, predicting the end of the bank teller role, and that just doesn't seem to have played out that way. So perhaps there is good reason to be optimistic. I know, though, that there is a ton of data to suggest that CEOs and boards and governments even are concerned about skills evolution and where are we going to get the massive amounts of skills around data and STEM that we need, and also on the flip side, what's going to happen around people who are displaced by technology, which again is not a new thing, it's always happened. And there's also a lot of data that says most L&D departments don't feel very confident in kind of helping out with this transition. Do you think L&D departments are still relevant?
So I think that that's a complex question in some ways, because I think It depends. I think it depends on how you're structured. Like every day I'm working with different organizations, and I see organization L&D organizations on a spectrum, right?
Hmm.
And some are just beginning their journey thinking about the challenges of upskilling and reskilling the workforce. And then I'm working with some incredibly forward-thinking companies that are not only thinking about upskilling and reskilling the workforce, but really thinking about redefining work and new models of completely blowing up what we today think of as work and learning and really reimagining it. So I would say that the question about whether L&D, is still relevant kind of depends on us, on leaders who are willing to say, this is probably the most exciting time that we've ever had in the world of learning and work. And if we can all rise to the challenge of upskilling and reskilling the workforce and realize that that's more our mission than just creating engaging learning programs, which a lot of times has been the mission for L&D organizations. I think we have a good chance of changing that conversation. So I love to give the example of my former boss, Carrie Williard, who's now the chief learning officer at Visa, and they actually moved their learning organization out of HR into the strategy organization. And why did they do that? They did that because they felt like they wanted to rebrand learning in a way to say, look, this is a strategic imperative to the success of our company. And so one way to make that obvious is to actually, is to change the organizational structure. But I would also say that doesn't have to be the case. So the other group that I work a lot with is the L&D group at Unilever, and Tim Munden, their CLO there,
Yes.
works for a CHRO there. Do you work with Tim as well?
Sure, I've met Tim. Yeah, they're doing really extraordinary things around wellness and the tying the work experience to the absolute core mission of the company.
It's incredible. So, they haven't changed their org structure there. Tim reports to their CHRO, but he is, along with the CEO and the senior leaders of that organization, working together to make sure that their learning and skills strategy is part of the business strategy. It's not something separate. And to me, that's the opportunity. So what I would say, long version of your question is that if L&D organizations feel like they're a service organization to lines of business, and they are going to continue to just design and develop learning that people are requesting, I think that might be less valued than a learning organization that elevates itself to the role of saying, look, I'm part of the business strategy, and I'm going to show you why that's important by talking about having a skills conversation and upskilling and reskilling the workforce rather than just talking about learning programs.
Got it. Totally got it. And of course, like here at the Learning Futures Group, we obviously believe this, and we're sort of actively seeking out kind of great examples of how people are moving the ball forward, because it does feel like a lot of the tools that we have are redundant now. Things are moving too fast, and to gather people in the classroom and spend weeks and weeks defining learning outcomes and so on and so forth. So, but building a learning culture in an organization seems to be very much the focus of some leading edge companies and some forward thinking learning organizations, I think. The book.
Absolutely.
The book. Congrats on the book.
Thank you.
I think it's probably been out like a year now. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the expertise economy, and our subtitle is fun. How the smartest companies use learning to engage, compete, and succeed. So it was published in September, and we're getting a lot of attention around it. I think it's very timely. We started, right. David Blake, who's my co-author and also the exec chairman of Degreed. the yeah, the co-founder of the company. I mean, he's an amazing person, and also someone who's really dedicated his life to learning and changing the way the world learns and thinks about learning. And so to be able to partner with him on this book was really amazing. But I think we're also very pleased with the reaction that people are having, saying, yes, this feels right. We feel like this is what you're saying is the time that we're in right now, and it's helping us to think about learning differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great read, and it's a great survey of what's going on. It's very timely, as you say, and there's a lot of good there's a lot of good sort of tactical guidance in there as well. But as you and I discussed before, the world's moving pretty fast, and I wonder if you're out there talking about the book and it's prompted discussions, and you've learned things subsequently that will maybe be the foundation of your next book.
Well, that's interesting. I haven't thought about so concretely about the next book, but one of the things I can say is that we wrote the book with CEOs and business leaders in mind, rather than knowing that learning and HR would already find it interesting. But what if we could actually, get CEOs and business leaders to start thinking about this in a way that they never have before? And so that was, I think, where we were hoping to gain more attention, which was great. Because one of the things that we know, and the PwC CEO survey that they do yearly is making it more apparent. So last year, the availability of key skills was number 5, the number 5 thing that was keeping CEOs up at night. And this year it's moved up to number 3. And so you have to ask yourself, so why are CEOs so worried about the availability of key skills? And what they're saying is that, if they don't have people with key skills, that it inhibits innovation, that they're not able to go after new market opportunity, that it impacts the customer experience. And so there are so many reasons why the skills issue is keeping CEOs up at night. And so with the book, we're trying to raise the consciousness to say, ask one simple question. If you're a CEO and you say, do my employees have the skills that they need in order for our company to succeed in the future? Do we have the skills that we need to win? I don't think any CEO can say they know for sure, like what skills their employees have and what skills they need in order to be successful in the future. So that's what we're trying to get people to think about, especially as they think about developing upskilling and reskilling strategies. Can you answer that question at a company level? Can you answer that question at an organizational level? And then as we're getting into more personalized learning and social learning, you have to ask yourself. Everyone should be asking themselves, what skills do I have today? And where's my skill gaps? And what skills do I need in the future to be successful and to remain relevant in the workforce of the future? And so I think that the book, really that's the central theme or thesis, and then the rest of the book kind of backs up, how we should be thinking about learning and building a skills strategy and all the components that are part of that, and then ending with a glimpse of the future of work, and how we might need to think and redefine work.
Well, let's talk about technology if we can, kind of dive in a little bit to technology. We've seen, I would say, over the last 25 years, technology solves some of the easiest problems around education. I describe them as maybe administrative, like the booking of classrooms and the registering of students. And then we had the whole sort of publishing and distribution of content, maybe even assessment and so on and so forth. But in your book, you talk quite nicely about all the elements that go into learning programs and learning itself, including deliberate practice and study and reflection and so on and so forth. How do you see, these are hard things, and how do you see technology starting to help with those, kind of elements, and helping us build sort of cognitive capacity and to understand new frames of reference?
That's a great question. And, I think we devote a chapter in the book about how we really learn as a foundation, to then moving on to the chapter on choosing the right technology to think about your learning strategy. And